me if I was willing to do this, I told him that the introvert in me did not want to, but that I felt that I should. Now let me explain that a little bit. I felt that based on the way all of you here at UBC had accepted Renee and I, you brought us into your community, that I could give a little bit back by filling this spot for Ken and by sharing a little bit about myself. Now to be clear, I am your backup. I am not your first option. You get what you get. All joking aside, as I thought about what I wanted to speak about, give my testimony, or pick a topic and give it a go, one idea kept coming back to me: community. As I reflected further, I realized that community had been an important part of my spiritual journey. At each step of my life, the relationships and connections that I made while in the church are what stick out. So, as it turns out, you get both the topic that I picked and my testimony, so I guess here we go. I grew up in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and I lived inside the city until I was 10. We then moved out to the country just down the road from my grandparents lived on their farm. This grandma is also the reason why I grew up in church. She would pick up my siblings and me, take us to her church. We would go to Sunday school. We would then sit in the pew with her for the service. It was fine. It was her church. Sometimes it was fun, and sometimes they gave me food. I like that part. Each summer, my grandma also made sure that we signed up for church camp. I remember the first time she asked if I would go. I was reluctant, but I decided to do it. It was a blast. It was a week away from home, sleeping in a cabin, playing various games, attending chapel, and having a campfire at the end of it every single day. It was great, and I loved it. While at camp, I learned many things. I studied the Bible with other kids my age, I sang fun and silly songs, and I learned the greatest impression that I know, a raindrop, which, of course, I'm going to share with you now. Okay. I'll let you guys collect yourselves before I proceed. Okay. Beyond this, though, church camp is where I learned about God and where I began to be more connected to the Christian community. I felt that I belonged. Each summer I would go and spend a week with other kids that I wanted to have fun with, and that we all wanted to get to know each other more and get to know God better. Reflecting back, one example of this shared community I felt and helped me feel more connected with the church was the nightly campfire vespers. Each night we would sit on logs around the fire pit at dusk and close out the day. We would start being upbeat and wind down to a more sacred time. A time of reflection, a time of being present in God's creation, staring into the fire and marvel at the dancing flames, or gazing up into the night sky and seeing the millions of twinkling stars that make you feel awe and wonder at their Creator. All the people around the campfire were contributing to the shared experience we were having. It was beautiful, and thinking about it, this was one of the first experiences I have of truly being connected with a group of people gathered together for a singular purpose. As I got older, and in my senior year of high school, my college decision came down to two places: Purdue University in West Lafayette, Indiana, and Trine University, now called Tri-State University, now called Trine, in Angola, Indiana. Trine was 45 minutes away from home, and was offering me a scholarship that made it pretty cheap to go, equally as to a state university. My mom, of course, loved how close Tri-State was. And honestly, I did too. The thought of only being 45 minutes away was appealing. Being close to those who I knew and my family, it was comforting. Purdue, on the other hand, was 2.5 hours away and was significantly bigger than Trine. Based on this and based on who I am, this decision should have been easy. It should have been Tri-State or Trine all the way. However, during my sophomore year of high school, our youth group was invited to Purdue by the Baptist Student Foundation, a campus ministry lovingly known as the Found, to be involved in a missions weekend where we would go around and do different things and experience Purdue's community. I do not remember what we did. What I remember are the people that we met and the people who were there hosting us. I remember meeting Pastor Sean, the director and pastor of the campus ministry. I remember meeting some of the same people that would be there 3 years later when I showed up. I also remember meeting some of my best friends' siblings who were there, who are no longer there, but their siblings showed up. One of them ended up being my best man. I had connections to Purdue. It was because of these connections that I knew I had a place that I could go to on the large Purdue campus at a prestigious university and have a place where I would belong. This is what made the decision easy for me. And I'm glad I decided this. The Found was a place on campus I felt a part of, a place to go in between classes, a place to play. And play we did. Whether it was running around the pool table, playing a game that was not pool, but used 2 balls, and you just kept running and running and running until the ball stopped. Or it was playing a game my buddy and I made up, Mag Life Baseball. Now this is a complex game where you take a Mag Life and a ping pong ball, and you hit it as hard as you can, and you play until the Mag Life slips out of your hands and puts a dent in a concrete wall. We stopped playing after that. We also played Tetris on the Nintendo 64. Or during finals week, we would bust out the Nintendo 64 version of the Olympics and button mash until our thumbs were sore and we broke a controller. That is how you won that game. It was also a place of study. There were many places around the Found where you could go and find a quiet place by yourself or with others to study, or more naturally, a place to procrastinate together. It was a place to make friends. We were there each day together, studying, talking, planning, and honestly being the church. And eventually, it was a place to find a partner for me. Hint, it's Renee. She's over there. Hi, Renee. Additionally, the Found is where I started learning to be an active member of the church. Being a campus ministry, a lot of the day-to-day aspects of the Found, worship planning, maintenance, outreach, missions, and social events, were handled by students. Because of this, I regularly welcomed new people to our services and made sure that they were included in any of the events we had with the established group. I learned about and was introduced to the concept of small groups. We would meet as students together, talk socially, learn together, and it was a great way to do those things. And most importantly, I learned how to support those around us. We saw each other quite often. When someone needed something, we helped. I can still remember the night when one of our good friends received a terrible call that her sister had been killed in a recent car accident. Many of us at the Found took turns making sure she was comforted and was taken care of. As a sign of support, a group of us went with her back to our hometown to attend her memorial service. And we participated in a fundraising walk in her honor. This was God's hand in the form of church community taking care of someone in need. The more time passes, the more I grow to appreciate what the Found was. It was a really unique community that provided both the support and freedom to be connected and explore who we were during this pivotal time of our lives. We were almost spoiled in a way. When we left, we had to adapt to a new, busy life and learn how to seek connection in a new setting, a new place that we had grown to love. We moved to Michigan for an ACE PhD program in Ann Arbor, and we began searching for a church home. We researched different places and attended several, but we struggled to find a place that we felt connected to. We would attend a worship service and stay for a little while afterwards, but did not feel a connection. Eventually, we stopped going to church, and it would be about 2.5 years before we went again, when we went to Minnesota. I think that this was partially us trying to find exactly what we had at Purdue and not being able to find it, and partially because we weren't being included and brought into the group when we went. In Michigan, instead of relying on the church for our community, we relied on other graduate students that Renee knew in her program. We made some really good friends by doing this, friends that we continue to this day to play role-playing games with, or play games online, go camping with, and visit at each new stage of our lives. However, to me, not being a grad student, and not being a grad student in biochemistry or some sort of heavy science, sometimes I felt not fully a part of that community. So for me, in Michigan was a great place to live, but sometimes I felt a little disconnected. I felt that I was missing something in my life. That eventually changed due to us moving to Minnesota to follow Renee's professor so that she could graduate in the same amount of time. So we moved. And looking for a fresh start, we began searching for an affirming church, a church that welcomed women in leadership positions. And in our search, we found one that was in our neighborhood, not even 6 minutes away from our house. We could bike there, we could walk there if we wanted. On paper, it had everything that we were looking for. So we decided to try it. And on the next Sunday, we attended Hamlin United Methodist Church. And during the greeting time, a nice older man walked up to us, introduced himself, made us feel welcome, and introduced us to the church. After the service, others made a point of doing the same. They talked to us, introduced us to the pastor, and we felt immediately included and wanted. We stopped our search immediately. We kept going to Hamilton. After some time, the church wanted to implement small groups, and found out that we had experience through Purdue. So they asked one of us to be on the committee. I volunteered, and eventually Renee and I hosted several small groups over our years there. We would meet together and share, how is it with your soul? To some of you, this question is quite familiar. It is a question meant to provide opportunity to be vulnerable with each other, to go deeper than, hey, how are you? I'm fine. Now, of course, this question doesn't mean you have to go that deep, but it provides you the option to be that vulnerable with each other. Sometimes in the small groups, we wouldn't even get past that question because there were things going on in each of our lives that needed talking about. That was perfectly fine, but we didn't even get to the study or the discussion. That's fine. These small group meetings provided an opportunity for us to connect with others in the church and help us form new relationships and friendships. However, it wasn't just for us. It also provided a space for those people who decided to come and join and seek that same connection and that same opportunity. We were providing a means for others to get to know the church as well, not just ourselves. As time went on, we felt more and more like we were the church, not just going to a church. We got more involved by hosting various game nights with other young adults, chaperoning youth group events, being door greeters during Sunday service. We were involved, included, wanted, and welcomed. Hamlin was our first experience of a genuine church community outside of college. We made a lot of great friends, and it was hard to leave Minnesota. After Renee graduated, we did leave, though. We ended up here in Columbus, Ohio, just over 2 years ago, or just around 2 years ago. Doesn't matter. Let's not get hung up on that detail. so that Renee could continue her career as a postdoctoral researcher here at the Ohio State University. Our story here started a bit like it did in Michigan. We struggled to find a place where we felt connection and community. So we tried a couple places and kind of stopped for a little bit until we went on a vacation to visit one of our friends from Michigan. She lives in Rochester, New York, and when we went up there, I also remembered that one of the board members and a pastor I had in West Lafayette after graduating was in Rochester as well. So I set up a time over coffee to meet with her, and we talked of the struggles that we were having in finding a place. And she recommended to us University Baptist Church in Columbus. She recommended you to us. When we got home, we decided to give UBC a try. On our first visit, we felt welcomed. We were acknowledged and talked to. I'm sure we spoke to many people, but both Ken and Beth made us feel very welcome. We started coming every weekend, but after a few Sundays, the pandemic hit. Now, I'm pretty sure that Renee and I coming to UBC did not cause the pandemic. I think. Anyway, normally, this would have made it hard for us as new attendees to get to know people at church. But with the blessing of technology and the idea to hold a prayer meeting via Zoom, we were able to get to know many of you. Additionally, I believe that this prayer group also filled a void created by the pandemic. A void of disconnection and loneliness, a void of disbelief and worry. We were confined to our homes and could not meet safely. We were missing human interaction. To me, this weekly call has been a hidden blessing from the pandemic. This meeting is simple. We meet, we share, we pray. However, the results have been impactful for those of us who regularly attend and for those who attend as needed or as they can. We know each other better. We care for each other in ways that we didn't before. Some people who now attend are from other states, and I feel that I could show up at their house, have dinner with them, and not feel awkward. Be awkward, yes. Be comfortable, but being comfortable enough to be my awkward self. That is amazing. However, this is also true for those of us who attend UBC and are geographically close. I feel like I know your family and friends because of the prayer requests and updates that are given, because of the praises and joys that are shared. Some of those joys and praises are from people I still haven't really met, but I still feel that I know them. This has truly been God's work at UBC. It reminds me of a quote from a Nomad podcast in 2010 about community, featuring the speaker and former pastor Rob Bell. During this podcast, Rob said, "Community is not created, it is discovered." I believe that UBC did this with the prayer meeting by interacting and talking and caring for one another. We discovered new things about each other, and that connected us. We created the format, the framework of the meeting, but that didn't create the community. The interaction is what happened. We discovered it through our talking. To conclude, I want to thank UBC, and Renee wants to thank UBC for being so welcoming and accepting, such a welcoming and accepting community. A community that has welcomed us into your life, trusted us to read scripture during services, pick new versions of the Lord's Prayer to pray and do different things with, to lead you in prayer and listen to you and share with you on Thursday nights. A community that we are now striving together to be closer to God. We want to thank you for that. I'd like to ask you to be appreciative of this community and how welcoming you are, and caring, and supportive, and many, many, many other things. But I also want to challenge you a little bit to think of new ways to be welcoming and supportive and affirming those things, to continually strive to do those things to others. Lastly, I have an activity for you. This tree signifies a community. It can be our church or any community that is or has been impactful to you. We will be handing out sticky notes. If you go ahead and start doing that now. And I would like you to reflect on what community means to you or has meant to you and write something about that on the note. You can share as much as you like. It can be one word. It can be a paragraph or whatever you can fit on there. If you need multiple notes, fine. Say something that makes you feel connected. It could be an experience. It could be a single word. Write that word on the note, and I ask that once you have that done, at some point, at any point, come up and add it to the tree. And then we'll have a little bit of an idea of the community that we all experience. When you come up, just be mindful of social distancing. Be a little bit space out and just put it on the tree. There's a front, there's a back, there's the trunk, and you can do that. So please take a moment and do that. If you don't finish now, that's okay. I think everybody would be fine if you got it while we were singing and you put a note on the tree if you need time to do so. So thank you for this opportunity again, and